This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing. It is the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation as we say hello and welcome to Oran Park. It's cloudy here today and the winds are high, and that means we're going to have a very interesting 45-ish minute race here today. Qualifying has just got itself underway as ever. These drivers will have themselves one lap to go as fast as they possibly can. It's Will Vincent here along with Gary Weaver. And well, Gary, this racetrack at Oran Park, it's small, it's tight, and what that means is qualifying is so important.
Especially with the weather here tonight, this is going to be, again, like you mentioned, very important for qualifying for sure. Hopefully these drivers can be able to master the weather here and make sure that they get through this track as safe and sound to make it to the end.
Yeah, we're on board of Brian Dewey. You can see him desperately trying to warm the tyres up and failing miserably in the process of doing so. Actually looping that car onto the grass. Felipe Burr, we can see him there in the number 2 TT Racing Machine heading into that final corner to start his qualifying lap right now. And there is the driver of Oran de Freitas in the number 86 car, of course, as he will head himself through Sector 1. We're actually on board with Oran de Freitas right now. And Gary, this is of course one of 2 tracks in iRacing which has got a figure of 8 layout.
That's really, really unique in a sense. You never really see tracks that actually have that kind of a layout with a track that really goes under and over each other. So it's going to be something that these drivers are going to maybe have to be careful for. Just watch out, and definitely brings a little bit of uniqueness though to Oran.
Yeah, there is Oran de Freitas in the number 86 car. We can see the first couple of times coming up. Andrea Amon, fastest 114. I was going to say 114.3, and you see Simon Edwards going to the top of the timing stands. Oran de Freitas will go 3rd place for the time being. He's 6/1000ths of a second back. More drivers are completing their laps. Let's go and have a look. Felipe Burr heading himself towards the end of his lap right now in that number 2 machine. It's currently Andrew Pecoro leading the way from Simon Edwards. Oran de Freitas 3rd, Greg Zietz in 4th, and then Cruz runs out your top 5. Let's see what Felipe Burr's going to do as he heads himself, well, actually, on towards pit road. Is that no lap going to be set by Felipe Burr, starting from the very rear? I mean, I know we've got a small grid here today, Gary, but to have a driver like Felipe Burr starting from the rear, that's going to be absolutely horrible for him.
Yeah, not sure what exactly, maybe messed up, and I'm seeing possibly a little bit of damage on his front tires, but that did not count for his lap. So that's definitely going to be something that you mentioned is going to hurt him later on. So I'm not sure what his strategy is.
Enzo Canto on board with him as he heads himself towards the end of the lap right now. So he's got one more corner to go in that number 924 machine, heading towards the start-finish line in that Thrustmaster powered machine, and he will head himself He's actually going onto a flying lap. Now that can't be right. And Enzo Cantor, by the looks of it, also not going to complete a lap in qualifying here.
And some of these drivers might not be able to make it. Trying to get the advantage in terms of the weather, but I don't think it's really going to help them out in the end, unfortunately. But that's just that's unfortunately the downside to just starting late here with their qualifying sessions.
Yeah, this track has got itself 12 corners in total. It's 1.6395 miles in length. And of course, it's got that very fast run from the exit of turn 12 towards turn number 2. Qualifying is over, so that is it. And well, it's a weird grid here today, but let's run you through it for this edition of the 2K World Cup. Your starting grid presented by DES Simulations, and it is going to be Andrew Picorio on pole position, 113.859. Simon Edwards alongside him on that front row of the grid, about a tenth and a half of a second back. Iron De Freitas in third place, Greg Zietz in fourth. Fifth place will go to Martin Cruz, Tran in sixth, Colin Van Ran in seventh, Edwin Valerino in the eighth position. One of the smallest grids that we've seen in 2K World Cup over the last couple of years. As you see, it is only a field of 21 drivers here today. But Gary, it is going to be very interesting with a lot of drivers who we expect to be high up in the field. Well, actually, they're not. They're all the way down at the back.
Yeah, it's going to be a major downside for some of these quicker drivers, unfortunately. So hopefully, again, they will be able to somehow, some way make their way up through the field. But they do have 30 laps, and they do have enough time to make it up through the field as well if they really have to.
It's 30 laps, and we're going to have ourselves a pit stop to boot, as of course is the case in the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulations. As we see, some of the drivers are already on that starting grid. Rating for your front row of Andrew Picorio and Simon Edwards. To do so, in fact, there we are. That is all your drivers. So that means that we are about to go green flag racing here for 30 laps in the 2K World Cup. These engines will start to rev. There is the green flag. We are underway for 30 laps worth of racing, and already they go 3 wide as they head towards turn number 1 for the first time. That was a very bad start by the looks of it by your pole position driver, because Simon Edwards already has the race lead into turn number 1. So Simon Edwards in that number 51 car with the race lead. Picorio down to second place, but going side by side right now with Iron De Freitas. De Freitas will have the inside line into turn number 2 behind Greg Zietz. Good start by Tran getting up 1 position early here. But, well, that was not the start that your pole position driver wanted there, Gary. As we just see the drivers actually head themselves then on this, I call it the infield loop section of the racetrack, because it's where, well, the camera angle stops being a little bit drunk there. It's where the drivers will head themselves basically up, over and underneath the racetrack as they work themselves now towards the end of lap number 1. So 1 lap of 30 here scored complete early. Simon Edwards has got the advantage. De Freitas second, Andrew Picorio third, Greg Zietz in fourth. Tran rounds out your top 5. We've got a driver on pit road early. That is Sasha Goal, who I don't see much damage to that car, so that might well be a penalty for him from previous races. But behind, we've got side-by-side going on. Anthony Catt and Kurt Crum right now. They are going at it for P number 11 on track, Gary.
Oh, man, they're really close. Around top of the back bumper, that 994 Bingham just riding the back bumper of Doyle as it's going to be a 2-wide battle with the advantage going to that 9. Actually, that's to the number 13, I should say, for Crum. So he's definitely going to try and get whatever advantage he can. He's finally got that position 11 as they round out this corner onto the short straightaway.
Yep, live timing and scoring will be available in just one moment's time. Visit racebot.tv/timing for that one. As we go back to the front of your field, and Simon Edwards, Gary, has checked out in the early going. It was just over a second. It's dipped now down to 9/10, but Simon Edwards with a 1 second advantage over Oran de Freitas as they work onto the third lap here, and Edwards is in proper offensive driving mode.
Simon Edwards had that great advantage from the start, unfortunately, at the misadvantage of your pole sitter, but that's definitely going to be a little bit of an advantage now, as actually Picario gets onto the driver's left-hand side for second place, and unfortunately, that 86 machine had gotten just a little bit wide on that first few corners, but now I think Picario wants to get back up to that first place position. He is fighting as he goes off the track and unfortunately loses a little bit of momentum. I'll have Greg Seitz on his inside.
Yeah, that will bring Seitz back into play in the... Actually, Greg Seitz has got himself ahead, so he's up into third place. And whilst all that happened, Simon Edwards, well, he's got himself another half a second. So the early advantage really is with Simon Edwards in that number 52 machine. As we're just having a look at the rear of that battle on board with Martin Cruz in the 201 car. Third lap of this 30-lap event about to be scored complete. Oran de Freitas does have the fastest lap of the day so far, and you can see he's actually pulled out an advantage as Greg Seitz and Picario work side by side a couple of moments ago. We got a car off, that's way off track. I'm trying to work out who that one was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they are all still okay, but Kurt Crum and Harrison Bingham for 11th place. It looks as though they've been side by side since the drop of the green flag here today. Two very similar coloured cars as well. They make contact, and that is the number 13 machine now going to have some damage to that rear wing. I was saying they've been side by side all day pretty much, Gary, but now looks as though that Kurt Crum's got some damage to the rear end of his race car.
That's going to hurt the aerodynamics for sure, unfortunately, for Kurt Crum. I don't see any actual damage on the 994 machine, so he may have escaped just a little bit, but unfortunately Kurt Crum's rear spoiler has definitely something to say about that. In fact, his left front wing is a little bit bent as well from what I'm seeing, unfortunately, so not only the rear spoiler but also the front wing as well, so that's definitely going to be hurting literally the aerodynamics from both sides. A bit of a pass attempted in the final corner from that 994.
He has. So just looking at a replay there of Carl Dronke, he's not had a good day at all. There's a replay of his incident. This will be down into turn number 2, catching the back end on the grass and the gravel. He's all the way down at the rear end of the field already, but you're right, you're talking about the 994 of Harrison Bingham, and he's still behind Kurt Crum. Worth noting, Oran de Freitas though, Gary, in the last lap or so, has started to claw that advantage back in. There's the lap gaps up, he gained 3 tenths per second that last time by.
And it was not too long ago, in fact just a couple of laps ago, where I looked at the scoring, and it said just about 1.4 second gap between Edwards and de Freitas, but de Freitas, like you mentioned, closing the gap, he just closed a 10th, and he's about to close another 10th again here as they come off the final corner, so de Freitas now actually has a little bit of a slipstream from the 52 of Edwards. We may be seeing a battle here for the lead in a couple laps.
After a very good start to this model race for Simon Edwards, it seems as though that de Freitas has been able to catch himself back up. The gap now down below half a second. And last time by, look at that, a third of a second gain by Oran de Freitas. So Simon Edwards is not going to have it all his way. The thing is though, Gary, if you're the top 2 drivers, do you fight early, or do you try and pull out to make it a 2-horse race later on? We often see in the 2K World Cup the fact that your leading group will try to do the breakaway and wait until after pit stops to really go at it.
That's usually the best strategy to try and just pull away, not attempt to pass, because when you try to attempt to pass somebody and you keep trying to do that in multiple corners, you start to bring the rest of the field towards you, and in this case, it would be a 74 machine and possibly your Pulsar as well, a 53 with Vicario. But right now, DeFrita not making any moves, just sitting directly behind Simon Edwards. So not really making any moves. While he did close the gap, he could try to make a move if he wants to, but you can see Edwards defending that position and 86 following directly behind him.
Vicario is down into 4th place, of course, after losing that position earlier on. But here we are on the outside. This is Oran DeFrita looking to go to the race lead in towards turn number 2. Wide angle being taken by DeFrita. Inside line being taken by Simon Edwards, but the next couple of corners are going to be advantage number 86 machine, and he sweeps through. And Gary, it's a freighter to the race lead. He didn't wait long at all, actually.
And he actually had a very good opportunity there, so I believe what his train of thought was, well, he's defending this line, but let me just go the other direction on the right-hand side, and somehow, some way, that outside lane pass actually worked out. So that is amazing driving by DeFrita, and well, it did bring the 74 to the back bumper of Edwards. Nothing really has come of that. Just like that, the battle had started, it's already ended. I believe DeFrita is already starting to make a little bit of a gap between himself and Edwards.
Yeah, the gap's up to about 4 tenths of a second right now. We're looking a little bit further down in your field. This is the battle going on for P9 on track between Brian Dewell and Anthony Cat. Cat has gained a lot of time this last time around the racetrack over the number 88 car of Brian Dewell. Gets a good run, is in the slipstream. Fast lap of the day has been set by Greg Zeet, a 1 minute 13.329. But here comes Anthony Cat down to the inside over the positive sim racing car of Brian Dewell. That one just looked easy, Gary.
He made that pass look easy, just like he was pretty much standing still. A great opportunity down the entire straightaway, and just like that with the preferred line on the corner entry, he easily snagged that position.
As behind, it's worth noting that Philippe Burr, now we can see him after, of course, not setting a qualifying time here today, is up to P12. And well, Gary, I mean, Philippe Burr is going to feel so lucky in some ways that we've got one of the smallest fields in the 2K World Cup and that I've seen in a long time, and I am going to try to do some research over this, but only 21 drivers took the green flag here today. Only 20 drivers are actually winning in this event, and that for Philippe Burr is an absolute godsend for him.
That's definitely, with the smaller field, like you mentioned, it's going to definitely help out Burr for his little bit of an advantage, essentially. So hopefully he can capitalize on this small field, and he's already done that with plus 4 positions up already. So sitting in 12th place, great news for that number 2 machine. Hopefully we'll see him up front later on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to have a look through. It's not been, at least since Phoenix, that we've had a field this small. Andrew Vicario, by the way, still having that battle with Greg Zeets for 3rd place on track right now, and Greg Zeets in the number 74 car. Well, he's actually not losing time. That's the important thing, Gary. When you're in a pack style race like this, and this is a big momentum style of racetrack, you have got to make sure that you're hitting your marks and not going into ultra defensive driving mode, because it's so easy around here to lose half a second, even though it is a short lap time, and well, Zeets is not bound to the pressure from Vicario behind.
Yeah, he's just acting like Vicario isn't even there, so that's pretty much the best driving that you can do. The only time you should act like when they're there, though, is when they're right alongside you, of course. But luckily for Zeets, he's just racing the track and not the driver behind him, so he's not really worried probably until he gets alongside or until pit stops happen, if that is the case.
Yeah, we're going to see pit stops, the pit window here, and a 30-lap race is very long. And of course, in the 2K World Cup, we always are going to see one pit stop. We saw 2 pit stops, of course, last time we were out at Road Atlanta a couple of weeks ago here in the 2K World Cup, presented by DES Simulations. We're on board right now with Anthony Cat again in that number 25 machine, as they work themselves on the series of right-handers. I was watching MotoGP earlier, and they were having all the left-handers. It really is the case of all the right-handers here today at Oran Park. Behind, you've got Kurt Crum. We're just going to ride on board of him. Of course, He had that damage earlier on, but doesn't seem to have affected him too much here, Gary.
Yeah, he hasn't really went to pit road as, of course, and he still has Bingham right behind him as well, maybe backed out just a little bit. So again, these two are still around each other, not surprisingly. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see if that damage really affects Kurt Krum just a little bit more, as a 9:24 of Enzo Canta is taking the taking the line to really avoid the other drivers as much as possible. So he is, of course, a lap down, unfortunately, but in position number 20. Luckily, everyone gets around him just fine, and Kurt Krum almost had a little bit more damage there.
Yeah, he did, and I feel really bad at this point because I just spent a couple of minutes trying to direct and commentate and look through individual pages when I didn't realise that the 2K World Cup website, 2kworldcup.com/result, has got the number of entries in a column, and it is worth noting the last time we had this number of drivers or lower was the 7th of August 2016. So it's been a long time. That was when they had a double header at Imola. That was actually, if I remember correctly, just after Imola made its entry onto the iRacing service. So almost 3 years. Again, you know, the likes of Philippe Leber, who we saw earlier, is going to be thankful that he's able to work a short field here today. Enzo Cantor, we expected him to have a better day, but the number 924 car is all the way down in 20th position and a lap down, as you alluded to earlier on, Gary.
It's not going to help out for that 924, unfortunately. So we have two people. We have two people that are not exactly benefiting, but we have one that's benefiting from this smaller field. Ooh, as I'm watching this 94 Bingham try to make a sneak a little bit of his nose there on the left-hand side on the first corner. That didn't work out, but we have someone that's benefiting from this, which is Philippe Leber, who's now in position 11, and Enzo Canta, who is not exactly benefiting from this, in position 20, a lap down. So it's two opposite ends of the spectrum for two different drivers here.
Yeah, there's the top 8 along the bottom of your screen. It's Oran leading away by 7/10 of a second over Simon Edwards. 3rd place goes to Greg Zietz. 4th place to Andrew Mercurio. 5th is Turan Tram. 6th is Martin Cruz. 7th is Andrea Amon. And 8th place is Edwin Valerino. Right now, we are just over 1/3 race distance here in the 2K World Cup from Oran Park. Of course, it's also one of the shorter tracks that we go to in the 2K World Cup. Only Summit Point and Lime Rock Park will provide a shorter race track experience. Back on board with Andrew Mercurio in the number 53 car. Greg Zietz is just ahead, a 1/4 of a second ahead right now on track. And well, Mercurio, of course, started 1st place, running in 4th place right now. And the only salving moment here for Mercurio is the fact, Gary, that he's still within 1.5 seconds of your race leader.
Yeah, so while that main start did not help out Mercurio whatsoever, this the draft from Zietz and as well as his racecraft overall is benefiting him. So even though it is only 3 positions, he's still managing to hang in with your leader for the most part, while more of your 2nd and 3rd place drivers, to be more specific. But either way, he is still benefiting from this, but he may have that 21 start to move and sneak his way into the picture. I've seen him just a little bit ago, and right now he's definitely about the same distance away, just about 2.5 car lengths or so, separating Tron from Mercurio for 4th place. But I don't believe he'd really start to make a move this early on, nearly halfway into the race.
Yeah, we just saw Anthony Catt come on towards pit road. Anthony Catt and Kurt Krum have both come on towards pit road this time by. I was wondering why Anthony Catt was going so slowly, and of course the pit entry here is literally you just dance to the right hand side of the racetrack, and before you know it, you are at the speed penalty box. And Anthony Catt in the number 25 car then doing his service right now. There was a better look at him as the pit stop timer. We expect 13 to 15 seconds. 13 seconds exactly on the nose is what we get for Anthony Catt as he's out and away then, down in the 16th position as he comes off a pit road. For Kurt Krum, it's a 13.5 second pit stop for him. So those two drivers are out and away. What that does do is it releases Brian Dewell a little bit, but he's got now more action with Edwin Vanarino. So you've got the Universidad Isabela 1 positive sim racing machine of Brian Dewell in the number 88 car, running in the 9th position, and the number 11 car of Edwin Vanarino, well, running in 7th. The reason why I say that, Gary, is because Andrea Amon is on towards pit road.
And number 9 took a quick dive into that pit road, so I and definitely not surprised that we're seeing pit stops pretty much right about here. That was a very wild entry, and somehow still managed to slow it down. So that was a very close call, and with that narrow pit entry, that's definitely going to be a little bit of a you have to be at least a little bit nervous, I assume, for that entry not to hit those yellow barriers on the left-hand side.
It's one of the harder pit roads in the 2K World Cup, even though these cars are not the fastest compared to some others that we see on iRacing. It is still difficult to get down to pit road speed. Of course, no pit limiter on these cars as well. 14.1 seconds then for Andrea Amon in the TT Racing car, back out on to track for him. Let's go and pay attention, shall we then, to your race leaders. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, no, we've got one driver on towards pit road. That is Greg Zeitz in the number 74 car.
And Greg Zeitz immediately diving out of pit road, so I'm pretty sure with seeing that, I'm wondering if now the top few drivers here are deciding, okay, maybe I should actually start to go to pit road. Simon Edwards lit up the left front tire on that corner entry there, so definitely maybe starting to think about, okay, I should probably head to pit road now. So the question is, can you really decide, as at least from what I'm wondering, is when some of these drivers will decide to go to pit road?
Well, I did say earlier on that it's such a wide pit window here because of the short lap time. As Greg Zeitz, let's have a look at the pit stop time for him, 12 seconds out and away. I'm sure a couple of these drivers are going to try and underfuel just a little bit to get themselves the advantage. The issue is, of course, if everyone underfuels, it makes the race pace at the end so much more difficult. There is Oran de Freitas in the number 86 car. No pit stop for him right now, but he is on lap number 16, concluding lap number 16 of 30. The driver ahead of him looks like he's coming on towards pit road. Oran de Freitas is coming on towards pit road, almost then running into the rear of that lap traffic.
Very, very close call, and that's going to give the lead. Simon Edwards actually is also in pit road, just behind with a much safer distance, as well as Turan Schramm, but I'm pretty sure that was a major scare for De Freitas, but at the same time, that also helped him out, judge the distance, and, well, unfortunately, again, gave him a little bit of a scare, but that definitely helped him out, but that may have also slowed him down in the process.
Yeah, Simon Edwards was about 2 seconds back coming on towards pit road, so it wasn't the greatest of pit entries either for Simon Edwards. What we want to do, of course, is keep the eye out on drivers who have come on towards pit road. People like Anthony Catt, like Andrea Amon, who have done so, but there is Oran de Freitas back out onto track.
LeBarrett actually spun out. Sorry, Will, but yeah, LeBarrett actually spun out on I believe turn 3. He was a little bit loose, and then got a piece of the grass and spun it out.
Not the first time we've seen that here today. Here's a replay. It looks as though actually Felipe Bert's got more substantial damage than that, because he was weaving all the way from turn 2 in towards turn 3. So I just want to have a look at this one again. So Felipe Bert looks fine in towards turn number 1. I'm wondering if he gets hit from the rear of the 88 car on the exit of turn number 2. It looks very close between them, but then Felipe Bert, you can see that car starting to weave, Gary, and then he just basically catches the dirt in towards turn number 3.
And then just a little bit later on in his lap, he did cut a corner actually during the replay, I believe. Either way, he is in pit road now, so I'm not sure if he has a little bit of steering damage or something. Maybe he's just having a little bit of handling issues, but either way, he is in pit road currently, and now in P6 as few drivers had pretty much the entire top 5 to come into pit road, and now De Freitas is actually back in the lead. Picari had just come in behind Greg Zeitz, who's on the racetrack now.
Yeah, Pecorio just made his pit stop there in the number 53 car. That pit stop time for him was 12.7 seconds. It was slower than Greg Zietz. It was faster than Arian de Freitas. Your top 4 drivers are separated right now by about 3 seconds on track. Turan somehow has just managed to make himself up into this 4th position.
He was in behind that 53 earlier on, so it pretty much actually was just outside the top 5, where Turan was actually in P6, I believe. So slowly moving his way up is that number 21 machine, but he doesn't really have. Now he may actually have the slipstream here in a couple of laps if he can keep up his current momentum. But either way, finding himself behind that number 53 and a little bit of an advantage here in 4th place.
Yeah, Arian de Freitas, though, with a 1 second advantage over Greg Zietz. So de Freitas has led here today. He's leading once again. The biggest issue was Simon Edwards, and I did say that although I thought de Freitas had a slow run towards pit road, Gary, the pit stop time showed a 2-second loss for Simon Edwards over anyone else inside of your top 5. So Simon Edwards somehow bulking his pit stop 46 seconds end to end, and that end-to-end time is always really useful, especially on a track like this where you got to slow it down quickly on towards pit road. The pit stop time was what, 1.5 seconds slower than some people inside your top 5, but you just didn't get onto the brakes properly.
Yeah, that may have been the case, unfortunately, for Simon Edwards. That's if he can't, well, I mean, oh my goodness, if I could properly speak English here for a second, apologies, but it's really unfortunate that sometimes you do great on the racetrack, and then unfortunately when you get into, you start to get through pit stops and you have somebody in front of you or somebody behind you, you have to wonder how much time do I have to brake, and do they have enough reaction time to brake as well? And, well, it's unfortunately that a time where you succeed on the racetrack, you start to lose it in pit road.
Yeah, we're on board with Kurt Crum right now. He runs himself in 10th place. Let's give you a Racebot TV fan immersion, so we're here in the 2K World Cup. Let's do a lap on board. Oh, what's going on?
Somebody had spun out. Yeah, as well. Turan is also off the racetrack. The 23 had spun in front of the leaders as well, directly in front of de Freitas, and now de Freitas has actually fallen back to 3rd as he's battling side by side with your pollster Pecorio.
Yeah, so let's not do a Racebot TV fan immersion. Let's try and unpack this one instead. This is Arian de Freitas in towards turn 1. We're on board with him. There's the car stopped on the racetrack. That just slows the Freitas down. They all check up behind him, and then Turan has an issue. I could see that he lost quite a bit of time. So let's try and relive this one. Turan in towards turn 1. Yeah, what Turan actually did is he just did a kind of sympathy run into the grass, Gary.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I'm pretty sure he saw what was going on up ahead, and he had no idea exactly what to do, so all he did was just slow down. Maybe as well at the same time, it was this line of entry that really messed him up just a little bit. So it's unfortunate that he's unfortunately back in a starting position in P6 after losing 2 positions from that.
Yeah, there's a look again from Arian de Freitas, and you can see that is Greg Zietz getting past, and then Arian de Freitas going alongside Andrew Pecorio. De Freitas has managed to get himself back up into 2nd place in class right now, as we're just having a look then at the replay again, as de Freitas is able to get 2nd place, but what it has done is put Greg Zietz to the lead.
And Greg Zietz was in prime position somehow, some way. He really took advantage of that somehow. So that was this could pay off for that number 74 machine. But at the same time, we have somebody who's been leading pretty much a majority of the laps in the form of de Freitas behind him, as well as Pecorio directly behind him in 3rd place, which is your pole sitter.
Lap leaders here today. Greg Zietz has only led, well, now 2 laps for this event. Arian de Freitas has led 11, Andrew Pecorio 2, and Simon Edwards has led 6 laps here today. So 4 different leaders, but it's been a bit of a topsy-turvy day here at Oran Park. Let's go back on board with Kurt Crum, and we're not going to do the Racebot TV fan immersion, but what we can do is talk about Kurt Crum. Of course, had some issues early on in this event, some wing damage, but he's right now behind Brian Duell, number 88 car.
I've been seeing Kurt Crum on the timing just hanging around about the top 10. He's currently in 10th as well, 5 positions up from 15th, which is where he had started. And, well, that not the best entry from the 88, unfortunately. Overshot, lighting up the left front tire, and that's going to put Kurt Crum in position 9. A very easy pass for at number 13, even with a little bit of damage.
So the number 88 machine of Brian Dewell moves down into 10th position. Kurt Crum from the Atlantic side of America moves himself up to 9th place on track. Good Tyrese here today. We've only had one. That is Rowan Griffin. We've got 3 drivers 1 lap down. Carl Dronke, Hans Hoyer, and Enzo Cantor. We've got 17 drivers who are still remaining on the lead lap as things stand, but Oran de Freitas right behind Greg Seaton towards turn number 1, and who's going to have the line as they come in towards 2? De Freitas will take the outside line. Will he have the advantage even towards 3? The answer there, Gary, is going to be no.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe De Freitas actually, this is going to bring Andrew Picario right in this, just looking on the right-hand side, but nothing doing of that. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe De Freitas had actually gotten an outside pass earlier on as well for the lead initially. So that's definitely something to really watch out for Seeds.
Yeah, as your top 3, you can see they are all within one shot of our aerial coverage, brought to you by And One Design, official graphics partner of RaceBots TV. The 2K World Cup, of course, presented by DES Simulation, and so great to have them back with this series and continuing with the series, even though there was a bit of a delay, of course, in getting the second part of the series going. But we're now on board from the rear of Greg Seitz in that number 74 car in towards turn number 1. Evolution Racing Team, the Speed Cafe Logitech G car on the outside again in towards turn number 1, in towards turn number 2, and again Seitz is able to cover off that inside line, Gary.
And very, very smart driving. And in fact, I'm seeing De Freitas just peeking down to the right-hand side. It's not going to work, but this brings Simon Edwards back into the battle as well. He's just caught to the tail end of Picario. This could essentially possibly be a 4-car battle for the lead at this rate.
Yeah, it could be. And for Simon Edwards, this is probably the best-case scenario for him, of course, after having those issues on pit road.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to help him out, and it's something, again, if you mess up in pit road, you have to hope that you can make it up onto the track, and well, so far he has in terms of distance, as he's again right on the back bumper of Picario. But now the question is just, when does he decide to make the move, and does he even decide to make the move, or does he wait and just decide to let them race it out in front?
Top 4 in shot there once again. Greg Seitz leading the way from Oran de Freitas, Andrew Picario 3rd, Simon Edwards in 4th, Martin Cruz around at your top 5. It's a big gap though between Simon Edwards and Martin Cruz, and this time by de Freitas doesn't go for the inside line in towards 1, and well, it would have been the outside line in towards 2, but Andrew Picario is looking feisty now as they come in towards turn number 3, and Picario, what, just a heartbeat, an iota there, Gary, was on the outside.
And he just had the nose right on the left-hand side of that number 86, just on the back bumper, enough to say, hey, I'm still over here, don't forget about me. So Picario definitely wants to try and really capitalize as quickly as possible, especially since, well, Greg Seitz has just extended the gap just a little bit between himself and that number 86. Right now, it's just a matter of slipstream and timing on when you decide to pass.
There is a look on board with Greg Seitz in the number 74 machine. We're going to have 5 laps to go at the line here. Lap time is about 1 minute 13 to 1 minute 15 here, depending on where you are on track. And you can see Seitz has got enough of an advantage now that he won't have to be hugging his rear view mirrors in towards turn number 1 and 2. In fact, Oran de Freitas is the one that might have to be looking in his rear view mirror just a little bit, because as they work through turn number 2, Andrew Picario got close just couldn't do anything. This is the frustration in some ways of Oran Park, Gary, because it can be tough to make overtaking opportunities.
Yeah, Picorio, I'm pretty sure, wanted to really try and make a move down to the left-hand side on the entry of turn 1, but I'm pretty sure he decided to just play it safe and just wait it out and hope that he has a much better run onto the front straightaway into turn 1 and just a little bit more speed to peek down to the inside without really putting himself or De Frita in danger. But that might not be the case because De Frita just immediately had gotten right up to the back bumper of Zeitz just like that in the first few corners.
Yeah, just having a look back through the field, you got Andre Amon running in 8th place right now. 9th place is Brian Duell, and Kurt Crum rounds out your top 10. There is a nice little battle going on between 9th, 10th and 11th place. I say that we need to cut away back to the race lead again because the Freighter has got close, and that was almost a nose going down the inside in towards turn number 2. So every time we try to turn away, it looks, Gary, that your race lead battle just kicks back up in higher gear.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it kicks up, it settles out for just a little bit. Next thing you know, just like that, as soon as we switch over to something else, it kicks up again. So I'm seeing multiple positions change around P9, as well as, again, still just having De Frita directly on top of the back bumper. I'm sure that he really wants to make that move, but he just has to play it safe again and just remembers and just needs to know when the correct opportunity is to make that move.
The Freighter on board of him then. We've been on board of him for most of this lap, but time is running out. We haven't talked about this, Gary, but the fastest lap of the day has been set by Tran. And of course, we saw he had a good run through pit stops. He is, though, running down in 6th position. He's kind of fallen back into no man's land.
And that, in a sense, could be the best, but here comes De Frita to the outside again on the lead, well, just at the end of the front straightaway, actually. He'll get the lead advantage entering turn 1, down the short straightaway into turn number 2. I keep thinking these two are going to make contact every time, but just like that, and just like before, Greg Zeitz continues to defend the lead, and he'll really take a defensive line as the outside lane of the driver's left-hand side, actually. Picario tries to peek, and now this is going to put a window of opportunity for Simon Edwards. And somehow, just like that, after it kicks right back up, first few corners, it settles out back into single file.
It does indeed. Don't forget, if you like what you see here on the iRacing Esports Network, just hit that subscribe button. Or if you're not watching for some strange reason, visit youtube.com/iRacing Esports Network. Check out broadcast by ourselves, the global sim racing channels, SimSpeed TV, LSR TV, Podium Esports, Apex Racing TV, and many, many others. It's youtube.com/iRacing Esports Network. And well, the Freighter, is it the case now of just not doing much on this lap and waiting until the last lap to make the pass, Gary?
Yeah, we've seen him on the tail end of that number 74 for multiple laps this time now. I'm pretty sure he does not want to give Zeitz the advantage with the slipstream on a corner entry, but at the same time, we can't really count Picario and Simon Edwards as well, because those two could possibly try and make a move and just ruin the entire attempt that De Frita would try to make on Zeitz. So it's just a matter of, like you mentioned, it is a matter of waiting and hoping that you do get the advantage. This is the run that would pretty much matter for De Frita as well as the rest of the racetrack.
We're just having a look there at the battle between Edwin Valerino and Kurt Crum for 9th place on track, but we are going to have to turn that attention back to that battle for the race lead. They are getting close now to the white flag here. 29 laps of racing are almost scored complete. Greg Zeitz is going to lead the way, and the question's going to be, is there going to be a move in towards turn number 1, Gary? White flag out, one more to go.
He's laying very far back. I'm not sure why. Maybe he's hoping that he can get it around, or he's just trying to hope that Zeitz is going to mess up. But right now, Simon Edwards, he's also laying back. A little bit of a move down to the inside lane, left-hand side, I should say, as here it comes to Frita. No, never mind. Just like that, still defensive line by Zeitz. Somehow retains the lead for the time being as Picario tries to get to the outside of De Frita.
Yeah, Picario actually had a best run there through turn number 1 and through turn number 2 as they now go through these long sequence of handers, and Greg Seitz goes wide. That's going to make it side by side, as it would be Oran de Freitas on the last lap of the motor race, who looks as though he's got himself to the race lead. Greg Seitz is able to hold on to second, or will he? Because it's going to be mighty close between himself and Andrew Bakuri as they work for the final couple of corners. Simon Edwards is there for the battle. You've got yourselves lap traffic in play as well, but Oran de Freitas steals the win here today at Oran Park from almost nowhere. It is going to be Oran de Freitas claiming victory, and at the line it will be at the line it'll be Andrew Bakuri second and Greg Seitz in third. But wow, we need a replay of that one, and Greg Seitz does not look happy. Well, that's the back end of it. I just want to replay this a little bit further back, and the overhead camera should probably show it to you here. He just pushes a little bit wide, and behind, de Freitas gets close. There is a nudge. There is a nudge between the two of them, Gary.
Yeah, I did see just a little bit of a bumper to the back bumper of Seitz, and somehow de Freitas with, I'm pretty sure he didn't want to do it like that, but either way, he did capitalize on that, as well as Simon Edwards capitalizing almost. But that was absolutely amazing timing by de Freitas just on the last lap to take it all away, unfortunately, from Greg Seitz. That was an amazing opportunity taken by the 86.
It seemed to be that Greg Seitz just got himself a little bit loose over the curb, and de Freitas just had more momentum, and we talked about momentum being a big thing at this racetrack, and de Freitas just didn't get out of the noisy pedal. But de Freitas is going to be the one to claim victory here today. What a finish though, Gary, to this 30-lap race.
That was absolutely amazing for sure. That was to think de Freitas almost had actually made contact earlier on with a lap car from the 23 by mistake, and somehow he still comes back after that and comes back to win after leading, I believe, the most amount of laps as well, or just under halfway at least. That was still, either way, absolutely impressive driving by everybody, and amazing finish.
Yeah, 12 laps led at the end by Oran de Freitas. So let's have a look through your final race results then here from the 2K World Cup and Oran Park. And it is Oran de Freitas who claims victory by about 3/4 of a second over Andrew Bakuri. Bakuri second place. Greg Seitz, after leading to the white flag, will finish in third position. Simon Edwards got alongside, got into the mix, but could only manage to get fourth place here today. Martin Cruz, fifth place. Duran Turan in sixth. Anthony Catt in seventh. Andrea Amon eighth. Edwin Vanarino ninth, and Brian Dewell rounds out your top 10. There's the remainder of the results up on your screen. We're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen, here on RaceSpot TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. But don't go anywhere. Post-race coverage, our interviews are coming up after these messages.
Assist to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Rayon Fowler into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing.
Lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save.
Look to the outside, and Trunkett goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
He's trying this contact though.
Slide left of the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cutback here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schubert, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
Post-race coverage then from the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulations and Iron the Freighter Evolution Racing Team. You got the victory, but you had to wait it out to the final lap. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, awesome track. I love this track. With this car, it's such a good combination. Yeah, I had a bit of trouble with the back marker after the pits. That cost me first place. So I was behind Greg. To be honest, I had to save some fuel, so I wasn't too bummed about it. But passing here is always a struggle. Had some good side-by-sides with Greg, but I think he ran out of fuel on the last lap. So I guess I was lucky saving fuel and getting the win.
You were able to get that victory. Talk about the fuel saving and the rather everyone tries to seem to undercut everyone at this type of event. Is it something that just becomes the norm now? Do you have to do it? Is there the opportunity to take a bit more fuel and go faster?
Yeah, so basically with every other car on iRacing, you can pretty much pre-select the amount of fuel you want. With the skip, you have to stop it manually of fueling, so it's always a bit of a, well, you want to be as fast as you can. So sometimes I'm a bit like trigger happy, and pull the plug too fast. But this time it worked out luckily.
Well, we had ourselves a good race here today in the 2K World Cup, presented by DES Simulations, and just having a look through the results. You hadn't won a race so far this season, so you've got yourself your first victory. Next time out, we go to Sebring in a couple of weeks' time. Thoughts?
Yeah, I love it as well. So this whole season is with tracks I love. So I'm hunting for a win again.
I was going to say, actually, I'm having a look through here. You haven't apparently won a race in quite some time. I'm scooping down the list. Am I right? Yep. It's not been since 2017 at Silverstone?
I think so, yes. Yeah, so last year I focused fully on GTEs. Didn't do a lot of 2K anyways. This season I was figuring out, well, let's come back to 2K and see if I can still do it. So apparently I still got it.
Well, you do. Before we let you go, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done from Evolution Racing Team?
Obviously, thanks to all the guys in the team. Thanks to Logitech for sponsoring us. Yeah, it's been a blast.
Well, thank you very much there. That is Iron the Freighter with the race victory. Coming home, second place is a driver who won out a couple of weeks ago at Road Atlanta. He finishes, third place here today. That is Greg Zeet, and he stood by with Gary.
And I'm standing here with the driver, the number 74, Greg Zeets. Amazing driving, but unfortunately it was... Win was unfortunately a little bit moved out of the way by the end, but either way, still impressive driving, and you still come home with a P3.
Yeah, thanks. I'm pretty happy with that. Not happy with the ending. That was not a great ending for a lot of great racing with Arjen, but yeah, it's very disappointing to lose the race that way.
Either way, you still managed to come home in the podium finish. So what are your thoughts on the race in general, especially with the pit strategy?
Yeah, I thought, we kind of had that front group, and Arjen was just starting to get away from us, and so I decided to try to undercut him there, and I think it kind of worked. It closed up the gap a little bit, and then I think I had just a tiny bit more pace, especially coming out of the last turn. I was closing down the gap to within draft range, and then he got unlucky with the back marker who lost it in front of us, and I took advantage of that to get into the lead, and then the rest of the race was pretty much fighting him off with some great side-by-side driving.
That's for sure. Amazing side-by-side driving for sure. What are your thoughts heading into Sebring for the next race?
Oh yeah, it's always fun there. Looking forward to that.
I'm definitely looking forward to that for sure. Before we go ahead and let you go, who would you like to give a shout out to for your third place finish here tonight?
My team, TT Racing, Philippe for putting it on, you guys for broadcasting, and since I thanked her last week, I'm going to thank her again, my wife Linda.
Uh-oh.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. I haven't got the graphic here today, unfortunately, so we can't put it up on the screen, but thank you. And also, I do need to apologise. You actually won your last race in November 2017 at Circuit of the Americas. Yeah, a few races after you had
I clinched
that
the
one.
championship that time.
Yeah, you did. But next time out, we head ourselves over to America, not to Circuit of the Americas. It will, however, be to Sebring International Raceway. And that's the place, of course, that we've got a lot of racing coming up soon, including the VRS GT iRacing World Championship. But that is all we have time for here today. Thank you, as ever, to DES Simulation, the title sponsor for the 2K World Cup. I've been Will Vincent. That guy has been Gary Weaver. Good night from Oran Park Raceway.